Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming in. I know it's the last session of the day, one of the last sessions, so attendance usually is tricky as well. I hope you're going to have more people tricking in. We all know what we're going to be talking about today. It's about Hybrid Mesh Firewall. You probably heard the keynote as well, the big announcement on Hybrid Mesh as well. Before we delve in, just about myself, Nadir Lakhani, I'm the solution architect in the Hypershield incubation unit within Cisco. Incubation, if you don't know, it's basically take new product into the market. So living into the segmentation space for almost like 10 years now. ACI, if you all know, secure workload iteration, Argento secure apps, and now the Hypershield. And sooner, Hybrid Mesh Firewall look like they're going to be the broader umbrella as well. Being with Cisco for 13 years, past 10 years involved in segmentation space as well. Now let's get into this is the standard housekeeping item. If you have the space already, assigned to you, the session number 2787, please join the space, ask questions. I'll do my best to answer your questions, within this week. Quick look at the agenda. I'm going to very quick, peek into the session objective. What are you going to be learning based on the abstract we've given to you guys? What is the industry perspective of hybrid mesh, right? Equivalent to hybrid mesh firewall. This is a kind of a conundrum, confusion, what it is, right? What Gartner says, what other analysts says, right? And what is Cisco's vision as well, which is important, which was announced today. It's been a journey for Cisco as well on hybrid mesh, known to different names, but now we have a proper naming and, public proposition. And we're going to follow by the architecture, what actually behind the scenes, how things happen, right? Not too deep because the time doesn't allow us, first of all. And we're also building the session, building the product as we talk, right? And then we're going to talk about some key capabilities and design principles, which basically unique to Cisco and how we differ from the industry. And then the real world use cases from the customer. And they are real world customers, and they're not made up customers. And the goal for the real world customer use case is to give you the journey, how customers are picking up a single product and single use case, and then propagate the journey towards the hybrid mesh firewall. So let's dive into the session. Session objective, I would like you to understand the evolution of hybrid mesh, where we're coming from, right? Why it is needed, for example. Explore Cisco's own version of hybrid mesh, some key capabilities on that as well. And then we're going to dive in a little bit into some of the niche aspect, which is unique to Cisco, and then the use cases, right? Now, if you start thinking about hybrid security, that's not a new thing from perspective, right? Think of back in the days when we transitioned from physical servers to virtualized servers, right? This is where our journey started already. Although we were not in the cloud, but we were on the premises, but still our thought process changed. How can we secure the virtualized environment, right? And then the virtualized environment evolved to the microservices, containerization. And that coupled with the cloud migration as well. Because both journeys started together. And you can see, fast forward 10 years, 95% of customer has some sort of footprint in the cloud. And this is where the real hybrid security starts actually. Cloud native security is very different than what you can do from your on-premises, right? So it's always going to be a challenge for customers. So this is the kind of a birth of hybrid security. And now, the name actually, you can call it hybrid mesh, you can call it the whatever, right? It basically, the concept behind the scene is the same, right? Now, the definition perspective, you will see three different perspectives on the hybrid security. There's a customer perspective, because how they look at hybrid security would help them. There's an analyst perspective, how they visualize that what's going to benefit customer and what the vendor should be building so that, they could benefit customer, right? And there's a vendor perspective as well. They look at the analyst views, they want to know what customers are looking for, and they build that product. It's a closed loop, basically. Without talking to each other, you cannot come up with the product. So that's why the question mark is kind of it's answered within the customer, vendor, and analyst, right? So it's a kind of a closed loop. When analysts build the report, they talk to the customers, many customers, right? If you look at the definition itself, you can definitely read that up in the internet as well, but give you a key takeaways from the definition. One of the core requirement, what the industry has been laying out for the hybrid mesh perspective, to have a unified management cloud-based platform. That's requirement number one, right? So any hybrid mesh firewall vendor you're going to pick up, this is the core requirement. If they don't have a cloud-based management platform, they are not going to fit in this category. And the second takeaway is that the mixed deployment. Like whatever firewall vendors are building, they should work across your environment, whether it's on-premises physical appliances, or a virtualized firewall in a virtualized environment, or the containerized firewall in a microservices environment. So this is a requirement laid out by the Gartner in terms of the core requirement for hybrid mesh. Without that, you won't fit in the category. Now, when we look at the Gartner itself, what are the main aspects they laid out actually, right? So whatever you see in blue, for example, right? So that's the key requirement: the centralized, unified management, cloud-based platform, right? And then at the bottom, you can see the multi-deployment flexibility as well. You need physical, virtual, containerized firewall. In between, there are few areas where you can have, is a good to have. If you don't have it, you still qualify with the hybrid mesh as well. And those are some mixed categories, whether it's an auto policy recommendation for different firewalls, whether it's a visibility into a cloud-native environment where you have a different communication across your workloads, or you have some sort of advanced threat protection kind of features. So this is what Gartner is calling out, right? But the question, before we get into Cisco's vision, the question comes in: why do we even need hybrid mesh firewall, right? So let's kind of talk about for a little bit. We talk to many customers. I work in a global team. We talk to many customers every day, different vertical, different sectors, right? And every single customer have different teams managing different environment. And this is a very normal scenario, right? Hardly you're going to see a unified team, which is kind of unheard in a perfect world, right? You will have a network team that is focused on managing network devices, whether it's a campus, data center, or cloud. But sometimes the DC and cloud are even decoupled, and they have a separate teams as well, for example. In the world of DC, you also have compute, where your application runs, right? So now you have a separate team manages the lifecycle of the compute. They manage the upgrade. They do the policies on the VMs and physical servers. So that's another team now in the mix, right? Then you have a cloud team, right? So, and cloud native skill set is unique, right? I mean, and it's no disrespect to the people who work with the infrastructure, the traditional infrastructure. Cloud is different. There's a huge learning curve to be able to get that, into your skill palette. And last but not least, so that's gonna increase the cloud native. And now you're gonna have the micro VMs gonna come in. There's a separate sort of a workload itself. So this poses a challenge. First of all, is the management complexity. Now you have multiple different touch points from management standpoint, right? Same goes with the policy. Now you have a policy in different enforcement options, different enforcement points, right? And they have no awareness of each other. They don't know who is doing what, for example. So if you don't have a full awareness of the policy, you won't be able to define a better policy. You might conflict with some policies. Maybe the InfoSec policies you're going to conflict with. So that's going to be one of the challenges from the policy perspective. And then the devices. You have multiple heterogeneous devices across your environment. So that kind of posing a challenge and a need of something which is unified in management, not from the management of the devices, but policy perspective, and be able to give you a holistic policy which you define once and let the system takes care of it behind the scene. So this is why we're coming up with the, even the industry coming with the notion of hybrid mesh firewall. Now, if you look at the Cisco's vision on the hybrid mesh, so we are definitely meeting the standard of what analysts are laid out. So we have our security cloud control. You probably have heard of it. That basically is a cloud-based management platform, right? And we have all the form factors. You at least need to have 2 form factors to be qualified for the hybrid mesh. We have physical, virtual, so we are good with that. But we are not stopping that here. Cisco's vision is beyond what the standard hybrid mesh, ratification by the analysts is. And what we actually, so I normally talk about in this graph from an axis perspective. If you look at the y-axis, we try to cover every aspect of your environment, whether it's the workload, virtual, physical, doesn't matter, every app, every user, every flow. Our goal is to give you the firewalling at every aspect of your environment. We are not limited to any certain category, for example. But even more important is the x-axis, the features we are giving you. If you look at the traditional firewalling mechanism, the best you get is the next generation firewall. Like all the bells and whistles you have for NGFW, which is good. But you won't see microsegmentation in that mix. You won't see smart switching doing firewalling in a switch stack. You won't see vulnerability mitigation in a way that it only mitigate the process but not destroy your application. So all these things are unique to Cisco, which we're going to talk about in a bit as well when we're going to talk about the capabilities. So Cisco's vision is much higher than the standard hybrid mesh firewall. And this is why we kind of uniquely positioned to be able to help the customer on security perspective. Now, this is a slide you probably have seen many times already in the booths, and I don't know if you have visited the booth already, but this is where, if you look at the top, that's the security cloud control. I have a slide we can talk about it as well, what it is actually. But the important pieces are the enforcement points. And if I get the right laser. So secure firewall, we all know secure firewall. Cisco's NGFW, pretty much in the top rating in many analyst lists, right? That can be part of your hybrid mesh enforcement points. One of the verticals which is you can use to enforce policies. But the important one is third-party firewall. So if you have existing firewall today, any vendor, for example, I think we are coming up at the beginning with PAN and Juniper or Checkpoint, I don't know, but PAN is for sure there. So the goal is to give you an ammunition to be able to push policies on the third-party firewall. And the idea is behind the scene is that we're not asking you to remove your firewalls. We're asking you to leverage security cloud control to be able to push policy there and leverage other Cisco solutions you have so that you can have one umbrella of policy management. And one of the key use cases of one of the customers we're going to talk about at the end is exactly the same. They have zero Cisco footprint, but they love the idea of third-party firewall management. And I'll talk about that, how we do that as well. Then we have secure workload, which is one of the top products in the industry for microsegmentation. It's been there in the industry for almost 9 years. Product which is very matured, and we have like 1,000+ customers using it today. And secure workload is the product which gives you integration across the Cisco firewall and the cloud firewall as well, which is very unique to the industry as well. Then we have the Hypershield, which is the newer Cisco kernel-based enforcement technology, which not only does the enforcement at the kernel layer, but also gives you mitigation of the vulnerabilities and also gives you smart switching-based policies as well. So Hypershield actually has, you can see it's umbrella where the smart switch is under, and we have the isovalent runtime security using eBPF under it as well. How many of you heard about isovalent? Eduardo's here, good. So isovalent is a company Cisco acquired in December 2023. And I don't know if you know about eBPF. It's not a session for Hypershield, but give you a very quick tidbit on that. So eBPF is a technology we actually use to do segmentation in the kernel space with Hypershield. And isovalent, the company we bought in 2023, is the founder of that technology, along with Meta. So Meta is another co-founder. And now we have the full engineering house in Cisco, and we are going to build something really cool with the Hypershield as well. And foundation of Hypershield is actually isovalent. And now we are also, sorry, it's me actually. So now we're also coming up with the two new enforcement points as well, with ACI and secure order. How many of you using ACI? Okay, good. So ACI integration was on the card for many years, but now finally is going to make its move. If you're using ACI and if you use ESGs, this is where, we're going to be starting enforcing policies. That's going to help you, again, unified policy and multiple enforcement points as well, right? Any questions so far? Are we good? All right. Now let's talk about the, the architecture on the Cisco Hybrid Mesh Firewall. So if you think of the key components from the architecture perspective, in fact, any hybrid mesh firewall you can pick up, the 3 core layers need to be there. One is the unified management, which is our security cloud control. The second is the policy abstraction. How are you going to be normalizing the policies coming from different heterogeneous touch points? It's a hypershield, it's Cisco firewall, it's third-party firewall. So you have to have a normalizing or abstraction layer that understand the policy and topology and be able to give you one single policy, right? And the third one is the object normalization. How can you ingest different objects or create different objects that work across different products? So you need to have those 3 layers at least. And there are so many other pieces you can, topology generator, for example, monitoring aspect as well. There are many things you can think of, but those are the 3 key principles. Security cloud control is our unified management I talked about at the very beginning. It's used to be known as CDO, Defense Orchestrator. It's kind of a rebirth of CDO. Lot has changed behind the scene to be able to give you the full control on the aspect of the different policies. And again, when you have the security cloud control and you have the products from Cisco or third-party firewall, you can use AI across the different products. And AI in the sense of AI assistance, you can ask questions, you can ask configuration questions, you can even tell AI to assist with the policy as well. So all the aspect of a standard OpenAI or GPT-4 kind of experience you can get with the AI assistants across the products. Then you also have the AI ops as part of it as well. So any alerting, triggering, any anomalies detection, for example. So all those alerting are pretty proactive based on AI detection, and you'll be getting on the dashboard as well. And last but not least is the testing. The policy testing is a key aspect. How many times you're going to be given a policy and you will take it and deploy it? You won't do it, right? The question comes in, where this policy going to break something? Or what this policy is all about, for example. So you're always going to need that testing mechanism to test the policy, and then you apply the policy, right? So this is kind of some of the salient feature of security cloud control, along with all the different aspects of the products that you're going to get with it. So this is our de facto unified management SaaS-based platform. The second component is Mesh Policy Engine. How many of you heard, I think G2 talked about very little bit today. So this is the magic behind the scene, which is going to be doing the pushing policy on third-party firewalls, even to the Cisco's portfolio across as well. And the goal is that to give you a policy manager, not a device manager. This is a very key differentiator. If you think about traditional firewalling, you do the policy box by box, right? You did get eventually some unified controllers, but still that unified controller manages device by device as well. But the security cloud control with Mesh Policy Engine gives you that policy plane, which is policy abstraction. So you define a policy intent, and it will basically convert the policy based on the topology generator built into the Mesh Policy Engine as well. So it has a lot of intelligence built into it to be able to give you that abstractions. And the goal is that, to give you topology and build the topology. And the idea is that, it will figure out, what are the different devices in the middle, and will be able to generate policy for each of them. So you are sitting here defining your intent to access the app, but actually all these 3 devices in the middle will be the one getting a policy. So this is important. So now you are not after these different devices and managing them. Let the hybrid mesh firewall take the onus to do that for you. And this is the engine behind the scene, which basically gives you the magic sauce, right? Make sense so far? Cool? All right. Now, let's talk about the object piece as well. So there's a attribute connector we have in SCC as well, Security Cloud Control, known as Cisco has many acronyms, so my apologies for that. CSDAC, we call it. Cisco Secure Dynamic Attribute Connectors. And the goal for CSDAC is to be able to ingest tags from heterogeneous system to be able to identify your assets so that now you don't have to worry about defining policies with IPs and other constructs. You have labels or tags dynamically learned from different environment, and you'll be able to use them to be able to define policies. So this is what the notion, and again, CSDAC will not be the only one in the mix behind the scene. The policy mesh engine also has its own object inventory as well. And we're going to be using some other as well. But the goal is to give you kind of an idea, like what are we doing behind the scene as well. So in a nutshell, when you're going to be using Hybrid Mesh Firewall and defining policies, you will not know what is happening behind the scene. It's we taking care of it, but just to give you a perspective, what kind of architecture or technology we're using behind the scene, right? To give you some flavor of that. And just an example of the connector, I mean, how is basically getting a tag from different environment, picking up which one actually you are trying to, work with, let's say NSX and vCenter, for example, and it's basically use this tag to identify the IPs and push the policy to FMC, which eventually go to Cisco FTDs. So this is just one example, but giving you just a kind of a pictorial view how things works behind the scene. So for you, it's just the definition of object, or you can just inherit the object from your cloud, for example, or VMware, or Kubernetes, or any asset management system you have, right? All right. Now let's get into the design and capabilities principles, right? So I'm going to be talking about few of the enforcement points we touched upon at the beginning in the hybrid mesh slide, and I'm going to talk about some of the niche aspect, like why they're unique. Any of you heard about Eve, encrypted visibility engine within firewall, Cisco firewall? Okay, so Eve is one of the key capabilities of, there are many other different features of FTD, but I'm going to highlight Eve because it's kind of a unique in the industry. And why it is unique, because we are able to identify applications and processes without decrypting the packet. So if the packet is encrypted, we use TLS encryption to basically identify what is the context of the packet. So now you can, without decrypting the packet, be able to define policies so that you can block malicious traffic. And it's kind of a unique and powerful in a way that, because decrypting does a lot of resources, and you need a big engine, a bigger firewall to be able to do that. With the technology like Eve, now you are not needed to do decryption. You just basically use Eve to understand the packets, and that packet will get the score, and if the score is above the threshold, it will be dropped. If it's below the threshold, it will actually be allowed. So this is the kind of mechanism we use behind the scene. And again, the goal is that, a lot of intelligence goes in behind the scene as well. There are a lot of data that we collect for TELUS, for example, a different repository we have. And the idea is that, to use AI and machine learning to be able to understand the threat score, and that threat score basically becomes the basis of whether the packet need to be allowed or dropped, for example. And one of the unique things is that you can basically kind of mitigate the different types of anomalies as well. For example, there's a low risk anomalies on the packet. You can allow them as well, for example. So only you can block which is a high severity kind of anomalies. So it's kind of a pretty neat, and that score comes from the Cisco's own intelligence through TELUS or other mechanism. So this will help you in a sense. You don't have to think about yourself, what I need to block or drop, for example. The packet get identified through Eve, will be analyzed through the AI and ML, and will be given the score, and based on the score, the policy will be defined. So that's kind of one of the niche capabilities of the firewall. There's so many others, but again, this is what stands us apart other than the competitors, basically. Secure workload, we talked about the microsegmentation solution. Now, it does the standard microsegmentation, which is one of the leading product, like I said at the beginning. But few key aspects of the secure workload, and I mentioned that as well. One is the native integration with Cisco firewalls. So the many areas I've worked with customers, they don't like to put agents on the workloads. This is one of the pushback you get always from either the security team or app team, which is pretty normal, right? But the challenge is, microsegmentation cannot be done without the agent. If anybody is saying it can be done, I'd like to know how to do it, right? Because microsegmentation, then definition become changed, right? So you have to have agent or something close to your workload to be able to understand what is happening. Without that, microsegmentation become more like a macro or network-based policy, right? So for those customers who really don't want agent, we have native integration with firewall. So we generate the policy based on the log data and NetFlow data, and generate the policy. That policy gets pushed into Cisco FTDs, but that's a macro level policy. But the key aspect is that it's all automated. I mean, you just learn the log, and it generates the policy based on the learning. So that's kind of an important part, because sometimes you don't know what to define from a policy standpoint, right? And the other thing which we do with secure workload is the virtual patching on secure firewall. Virtual patching is like to block the vulnerability based on snort signature on the firewalling. So the only aspect which is different than the firewalling integration is you need an agent to detect the CVEs, but you're blocking the CVEs at the firewall. So this is the capabilities what we have from secure workload on FTD integration, which is pretty unique. Any microsec solution you see in the industry, they don't do that today. The other key aspect of secure workload is the integration with the cloud firewalls. So if you have a cloud environment like AWS, Azure, or GCP, you can be able to instrument the cloud-native firewalls with secure workload. You can ingest a log from the VPC logs, NSG log from the Azure, for example, GCP logs. Based on that log, we can define the policy, and that policy can push into those cloud firewalls, like AWS Security Group, for example, Azure NSG, or Google Firewall. So this is kind of a very unique thing as well. Other vendors do that, but again, they're not scalable across all three clouds. So the goal is, I mean, the secure workload connector learns and connects to the APIs, to the cloud accounts, and then ingest the logs and labels and enforce policies across all three clouds, depending which one you're using. And this is pretty unique in a way that because otherwise you need to use some other firewall tooling to be able to do that. But this one product gives you microsegmentation, integration with physical firewall, integration with cloud, and many other aspects as well, right? Now, on the HyperShield front, how many of you heard about HyperShield? Okay, at least a few of them. That's good. So HyperShield is Cisco's kind of a newest product, which basically does some unique use cases from segmentation perspective, or also from the mitigation of vulnerability. What I'm going to talk about here is in vulnerability mitigation, which is kind of a pretty interesting aspect. So what I'm showing here is how we collect the data from the vulnerability standpoint. So the way standard scanners and the vulnerability management tool, they grab data from the standard NIST database, right, or NVD database. So you grab the metadata based on the CV information, CV score, CV name, and you also be able to get the data. I mean, how many times that's vulnerability been exploited in the wilderness? How many customers have been exposed to that? So we grab that data, and then because we are agent-based on HyperShield, we are on the server or application host, we grab the information, which is pretty unique. We are using eBPF at the kernel, and we can look at the process. We can look at the application SBOM as well, for example. The goal is that, I mean, the granular visibility give us some additional information, which is unique to us as well. And once we have all the information get fit into the AI engine behind the scene, it generates the policy in the form of a shield. So shield is just a name of the mitigation technique, but it's actually a policy which goes in between the processes. And the critical aspect here is that if you find the solution today we have in industry, when they mitigate the application vulnerability, either they isolate the workload so that it doesn't propagate the vulnerability further, or it breaks the application because it has to, turn it off, for example. Or you have to wait for the patch, which usually takes time. And even you have a patch, it needs some processing time to even put into the application. And you have to look for dependencies and so many things, right? What we do, we actually just apply the policy between two processes that could lead to an exploit. That way your application doesn't break. You can wait for the patch, you can wait for the testing, and during that time you're secure because your policy is in place between those processes. And so I've just put some screenshots to give you a perspective of how HyperShield works. So when you see the vulnerability in HyperShield UI, you get the detection. Like you see, I mean, we see here two vulnerabilities have been, one has been detected, right? Or it's two or one? Two, yeah. And none of them has been shielded yet, right? Then basically you can click on the shield and apply shield on one of the assets, right? And once the shield is deployed, now it's going to show you, I mean, you're half protected because you only deployed in one, right? So And behind the scene on your containers or your workload, this is the policy that goes in. But you can see, you can appreciate how much complexity we are getting away from you, and we're giving you just a few clicks. But behind the scene, we are pushing the policy into the containers, and it's basically making sure all the Apache's path, which is vulnerable to that vulnerability, are blocked or only allowed, which need to be allowed. So the goal is that, so while blocking this thing, we did not break the Apache. Apache is still working, but we only blocked that exploit process so that you are no longer being exploited. So very unique to the Cisco, that particular feature. Any questions? Are we good so far? All right. The next is Smart Switch, and I'm pretty sure you have all heard about that already. Just to give you a bit of perspective, Smart Switch, what it is basically. So the Nexus 9300 switch, the Nexus switch, with the standard ASIC we've been building for the past few years. But what we have actually done, we integrated an AMD chip into the switch as well. Now, what is AMD and what is the chip is, just to give you a very quick rundown on that. Have you guys heard of DPU? Data Processing Unit? So DPU is kind of an innovation of a company known as Pensando. So they're ex-Cisco guys. About 10 years ago, they left Cisco. They created their own company, Pensando, and they innovated that DPU. Pensando was acquired a few years ago by the AMD. So that's why it's known as AMD Pensando. There are other players in the market as well. NVIDIA is there. Intel is also working on their IPUs as well. But AMD is leading the pack because they were the first, and they are in the lead right now. NVIDIA is definitely a second close to it. So we're using AMD DPU chipset in Cisco Smart Switches, and those DPUs are basically doing firewalling for you. So why DPUs are different than the other chipset? Have you guys ever thought why every 1.5 year, Intel and AMD come up with a new chip, new processor? Every 18 months, or Xeon, Athlon, just keep coming in. The reason for that, when they built the chipset and they burned the features, they burned the feature on a wafer. And once you burn the feature on the wafers, then they're locked in. So now in the next few months, in new feature, you have a new chip. This is how it goes, right? But DPUs actually are programmable entities. They run custom Linux code. So now you don't need to burn a new wafer. You just erase the code, put a new code in, and get the new feature in. And this is why they are kind of innovative. They are kind of revolutionized the chipset industry. Right? This is what we use. So now those DPU interact with Hypershield and get the policies and be able to give you that switch-based policies in the data centers. So that's what Smart Switch in a nutshell is, right? So again, from the use case perspective, there are 4 use cases we are coming up with. Cloud Edge, which is if you have a co-location, and Equinix kind of a pretty common one, you can use Smart Switch in between your on-premises and cloud environment. And this is very common where we've seen customers using very big, heavy firewalls, and those firewalls are not come in a small price. So Switch is pretty low cost from that perspective and high throughput as well. The stateful policy we give you on a switch is 800 gig capacity. It's pretty high. And we have tested that. So it's kind of not like a, just a make-up thing, for example.
Is it just like a layer 4?
Layer 3, layer 4 to begin with, yeah. The zone-based segmentation is another use case. In your data center, if you're using firewall on your fabrics as a service device or as a PBR, policy-based routing device, you can use the switch to be able to do firewalling for you. And you can use the switch for other means as well by plugging in the devices and for the switching mechanism, but only the firewalling traffic can be firewalled. Other devices can be hanged off at a switch. So now you can multi-purpose the device for the switching and for the firewalling as well. Also for DCI as well, if you have multiple fabric across data center, you can use switch as IPN or ISN device as well to be able to do routing and be able to do security. And the other switch we're coming up with in August timeframe is the top of the rack switch. So it can be a part of your leaf in your standard data center fabric. Not ACI, but the standard VXLAN-based fabric, right? So that's something we are coming up with in August. and followed up by what I'm hearing, I mean, there are talks about the ACI as well, so hopefully we're going to see something on that horizon as well. Now, so this is just a topology on the switches as well, just give you the perspective of how the cloud ramp switch can be, switch can be used as a cloud ramp, for example, right? So just a few pictures I'm going to go past here. All right, AI defense. How many of you heard about AI defense in Cisco? So again, when we talk about AI defense and AI security, one thing I want to make sure you take away with that, the AI applications are not different than any other applications. Just think of when the web came in at the very early, we always kind of worried about how to protect the granularity of the web. You cannot just block the web page completely and you're good. You need to go granular, you need to do URL filtering to make sure what to allow, what not to allow kind of thing. So same goes with AI as well. The perspective has changed. You need to kind of understand the application to be able to do the blocking or allowance, for example. There are different standards being ratified by the OWASP and the MITRE, right? And you will also see, the landscape. What are these threats look like, for example? I can give you some example. I mean, so because AI is not about security, it's also about safety as well. So there are two aspects of AI security. Security is when you can protect your AI models, the application you built on AI, or the user who are using the, user machines who are using AI. But the other aspect is AI safety. The user who's using it can be abused by the AI, by the poisonous data feed it gets. So there's a depression attacks as well. So there are so many laws in the different countries which basically allow you to make sure that you protect the user as well. So there are very different aspects looking at AI security. Not only the technical security, but the human safety as well. So the multiple aspects of it. So whenever you see an AI security solution, we talk about both aspects. And a couple of things. I mean, the prompt injection is something. So if you go to ChatGPT, a $20 one subscription, you go and you can type, I need to make a bomb or something, for example. It will come up, you can't do that. It's not, it will not give you that answer right away. But if you maneuver the question from different aspects, I'm doing a labbing, I just need to understand, whatever. So after multiple prompting, it will leak the data. So that what prompt injection is. Try to give, the hackers come in and they bombard these things to the engine, and eventually engine leak the data. So this is kind of just one of the examples, right? So with AI defense, what we do basically, we're making sure, so first of all, we inventory the application you're using, whether it's a developed application by your company or the user is using the company. And if a user is using it, then we also do the risk analysis of those applications as well to make sure it does not harm the user and the customer and the data as well. And then we apply the guardrail policies across it. And when we do the policy enforcement, we use the existing mechanism, which we are part of the Hybrid Mesh Firewall. It's a standard Cisco Firewall, Hypershield, multi-cloud defense, or secure access, right? So this is kind of a deja vu back to the same. The goal is to give you same umbrella. This is the important piece, right? Does it make sense so far? All right. I think the last one is the ISO variant. So how many of you heard about Cilium? Any container guys here? No. So Cilium is actually one of the most popular project of ISO variant in terms of all the hyperscalers today, Azure, AWS, Google, they all use container network interface. They use Cilium. So if you go and buy provision the managed Kubernetes stack on the cloud, you will get Cilium as part of the networking stack. And if you even quiz your own company platform guys who are using containers, they must be, at least know about Cilium. It's a very, very common product and very known product. So all these different container networking, whether it's the L4, L7 kind of policies, for example, encryption on the IPsec WireGuard perspective, and all the load balancing. So all these different networking aspect of the containerized environment taken care by Cilium. And you can use Cilium as part of the ISO stack, which basically sits under the Hybrid Mesh Firewall as well. And I'm not even talking about the other capabilities, because it's also the runtime security as well, which is part of the Hypershield eventually, right? Now, I'm going to get into the customer use case, which is one of the coolest item, I think, which is a real testimonial of the existing customers. Unfortunately, I can't name them, but still, I'm just going to give you a perspective what they are. So we're going to talk about 3 customers. First customer, the challenge they are migrating some servers to the cloud. It's the kind of acceleration policy from the CIO. And those workloads need to be segmented for compliance. And the solution they were using for on-premises cannot be worked at the cloud. So that's the challenge they were facing with. And they were looking for a solution that gives them the compliance. And compliance was supposed to be met by April 2025, so that time has passed. So this customer has acquired what is, so I'm going to talk about that as well. So they were the risk of exposure, they need to meet the compliance, and they also wanted to have some sort of a policy unification as well. So that's the kind of a premise what this customer was facing. It's a large bank in East Coast, just to give you the perspective, right? So if you think this is the customer environment, and you can see, they have like, you can see, they could have many, they have a Google Cloud, they have Azure NSGs. Google is where they were moving the servers for compliance. They also have Cisco Firewall, they use today. They don't have the microsegmentation. They do have Kubernetes, but they are doing it manually today. No policy orchestration on that as well. So when we talked to them, we presented them the secure workload idea because that's the ready product they can use to meet the compliance need. Because Hypershield policy enforcement is coming in August, September timeframe. So they went with secure workload. And when they went with secure workload, now they met the compliance requirement, and they actually got the security cloud control for the management. So now they started the journey, actually. This is how we get them started. And since they're using Cisco Firewall, they also wanted to leverage secure workload to generate order policy for the firewall as well, so they can leverage that. So the goal is by July, they're going to be moving their policies on the firewall as well. So this is active customer. The journey is ongoing. The other aspect of them is since they're in cloud already, and secure workload can also integrate the cloud firewalls, so that's the next step. We're going to be working with them to be able to give them the cloud-native firewall integration as well. So now you can see how they're making the journey, and they're getting the security cloud control as a hybrid mesh umbrella. And last but not least, since they have containers, we wanted to give them Hypershield, because Hypershield is more prone to container segmentation. But since they already are using secure workload, so we just moved them, going to move them with secure workload to the container as well. So this is one customer journey, which basically have started with secure workload because of the one challenge they were facing with. And our goal is to give them this journey for hybrid mesh firewall so they can use and benefit what they have today. Does it make sense? That's the use case number 1. Use case number 2. This customer doesn't have any Cisco. I don't say it's an anti-Cisco, I would say, but they just have many other vendors, right? And they actually are using, microsegmentation already. They have the cloud management firewall. They have and they have multi-vendor firewalls already. Like they have 2-3 vendors already. And their challenge is firewall policy management because they have different vendors. They are struggling with that, right? How to keep they use Tufin as well for policy orchestrator, but it just doesn't work out as good. So that results in policy inconsistency. Of course, you have multiple different aspects, so you will be challenged with that. And the other aspect, which is kind of unique, is that, for our perspective, when we were talking to them, they don't have a good workload hardening techniques. Like any vulnerability management, they do have many scanning solutions like Qualys, Tenable, you can name it, right? But all of these different solutions, they don't give you mitigation. They give you detection, prioritization, but you eventually have to send it somewhere, a workflow, to work with the patching team. And patching team will take their own sweet time to patch the application, right? So that's another challenge. And they were looking for the same unified aspect as well. So what we're going to be doing with this customer, we haven't yet, because Mesh Policy Engine is the answer for them because they were looking for third-party firewall management. So now we announced it, so we're going to be working with them to be able to get the Mesh Policy Engine. This is the goal to give them. But we're also going to give them Hypershield as well as part of it so they can use Hypershield for CV mitigation because they don't have it today. And Policy Mesh Engine has to be used has to be, you cannot just sell as a product. It come with the kind of embedded product set. So this was Hypershield going to be another angle for them. So we're going to be using Hypershield primarily for DEP, which is distributed expert protection, like CV protection. Microsegmentation, they're still going to be using what they use today, but the goal is that we be able to replace that with Hypershield when the renewal comes in. That's the idea behind the scene, right? And this customers agree with that. The goal is they need to have the policy management on different firewall to be hashed out, right? Cool? Any question? Good. The last customer is, again, they are using Cisco firewall but very limited space. But their main goal is basically they want to use container networking. This is their goal. I mean, they love Cilium. Cilium is an open source project, but ISO Enterprise is actually the one you can buy. So they like Cilium. They use OpenShift environment, and they wanted to start with Cilium. And they're currently exploring the microsegmentation solution already. They are doing the POVs, and Cisco is one of them as well in the mix. So. And again, they also need for unified architecture. So unified architecture is a common conundrum within the customer space. This is something everybody needs that, right? So with this customer, we're going to start with the Cilium because this is where their sweet spot is. They want to go with that, for example. And we're going to be expanding that with Hypershield once the POV gets done. Because I mean, this is now exploring it. The goal is December timeframe, and by that time we will be ready with Hypershield on a policy standpoint as well. So the goal is, I mean, to give with the ISO Valent, go with Hypershield, and since they're using the Cisco and third-party firewall, we can also expand them on the mesh policy engine as well, because this is a common theme, right? Because they already have the firewalling, so why not leverage the security cloud control since they're already using Cilium and Hypershield? And last but not least, to expand that to the multi-cloud defense, because they're already using the multiple clouds already. So this is the kind of a journey or a methodology you can think of when you look at your own environment. I mean, how can you redesign or maybe prompt for redesigning, or you start using something that gives you that journey propagation, right? I hope that makes sense. The key takeaways, again, try to get the micro perimeter security aspect into your environment because the broader perimeter security is kind of old school now. You need to have a security closer to your application, right? You need the, again, unified strategy, centralized management, which is the standard. AI is kind of, for next few years, you can get away with that. So make sure you have some sort of AI in your environment that will give you the consistent policy. And again, just last slide, from the procurement perspective, we are kind of also making it simplified for customer to be consuming these products. You can buy one license that work across different products. So it's not like, I mean, you need to buy secure workload, firewall, Hypershield. You can buy this cloud protection suite. Underneath, you can use any product. It doesn't matter. So it's a kind of a flexible licensing, right? So the call to action, basically, evaluate your current environment, your security posture, how it is today, initiate the modernization, like, introduce the new ideas, what these new technologies mean actually. You can engage Cisco or partner to be able to help you with that and, apply whatever you learned today to your environment, right? So this is the kind of a takeaway. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening. And I'm there in 10 minutes early. If you have any questions, please let me know. You're welcome. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.